I left the UK in 2012 and I didn't come back until 2024. And let me tell you, the UK changed a lot in those 12 years. And I knew that going in when I was traveling around 2023 and even before that, as I saw news and all that, I saw that the UK was in a sort of a dire situation. But then as I traveled a lot, and well, British people do like to travel and they do like to leave the UK, either temporarily or permanently. I've had the chance to talk to a lot of British people. I did go to the UK about a year ago, so in April of 2024. And the things I've seen and the news I've seen just all point to why British people are indeed leaving the UK, and they're leaving for pretty much anywhere really. I saw British people in Switzerland, in the UK, in Italy, in Switzerland, in Ireland, and all over Europe. So many British people here in Australia, where I live right now, and it seems to be a recurring theme whenever I talk to British people. They say something in the lines of Britain is a shithole. That's how they would say it, and you can see why in terms of like Britain leaving the EU, and then all of a sudden British people are kind of stuck there. They can't really move freely as freely as they used to, and then the economy obviously is going down. One thing that I've heard a lot is that if you're not in London, salaries are really so bad. It's so hard to live because even though the pound sterling is a really strong currency, prices there are actually pretty expensive. And I had that experience myself where I would go up. Last year I got into London and then I started going up, and I went to Liverpool, I went to Lancaster where I lived when I was a kid. I went up to Edinburgh and Glasgow and then Belfast and then Dublin, which is not the UK, but still prices were really high. And I had been traveling all around Europe for the past year before that, and even cities like Paris or Rome or Berlin, cities in fairly expensive and quite comparable countries to the UK, things were just much less expensive, to be honest. And so if you don't make a lot of money and then things are really expensive and then the weather isn't particularly good, I can see why so many people are leaving, and that is a contrast to how I saw my time there in 2011, in 2012. Obviously, when you're a kid, you kind of romanticize everything, so it could be that it was already problematic or going down and I just didn't see it. But my perception of the UK, traveling all around it as a kid, studying in like just a normal regular primary school and all that, was definitely one of a great country, especially coming from a developing country. The way I saw it was like, damn, like the things here are really like well off, and the school really worked and the bus system really worked and people were so nice and the education was so interesting, like the way education was framed when compared to back home. So I just saw a lot of good things, to be honest, and I kind of grew fond of British culture overall, of how people are polite, of how people are, even though somewhat distanced, they're nice to you, and that's definitely the experience that I personally had as a kid. But then it's also, like I said, it could be a little bit mingled with nostalgia with all that. And one thing I can say is that it was definitely well perceived. So when you mentioned the UK back in the day, back in 2010 or 2012, it was definitely, England was something to be seen with high regard, let's call it that. And I think it's been gradually losing that. And one of the news I've seen lately is that the UK is actually the single country that's losing the most millionaires. And I'm pretty sure it's also a country that's losing a lot of just overall working population. People moving to Ireland for the first time in history. Ireland is actually somewhat of a better country than the UK to be in. Like, who would have thought that 30 years ago or 50 years ago that it would be reversed, that it would actually be English people moving to Ireland for better jobs or better salaries or better job opportunities. Here in the UK and New Zealand, British people were the single most common type of immigrants. Maybe in Australia, there's also like a lot of like Chinese, like Asians, Indians, but in New Zealand, it's the single most common ancestry. And I've met a lot of people from New Zealand, from Australia as well, but especially from New Zealand, where all of their four sets of grandparents, like the two sets of grandparents, are from the UK, from different parts, and they just moved to New Zealand, and then their parents ended up meeting there. And so it is a very common thing for British people to leave. And like I said, I can see why, but it's really sad because for over, I want to say at least 200 years, or more likely 300 years, Britain was a force to be reckoned with, you know. And in the 1800s, all the way until the early 20th century, it was the place to be. London was the capital of the world, and it still, in a way, kind of is. If you see rankings of alpha cities, the two most alpha global cities are London and New York. But what percentage of it is something that actually forecasts into the future, and what percentage of it is just living off its past? It's just living off institutions and systems and structures that already exist, and they're kind of crumbling, actually. And so I still see many reasons to stay in the UK. Like I said, I kind of like British culture. So lots of people don't like British food, but I personally really enjoyed it. Like just the fish and chips and potatoes and Yorkshire pudding and all that, and like going to a pub and getting the roast of the day or the Sunday roast. Like I like that vibe. I definitely think that there's a lot of things that still go for it, you know, and they're in our culture. The UK is still seen as the country of like Harry Potter, you know, and of posh, educated people. And there's something to be said about that. Definitely, if you want history, if you want like architecture, as I was moving through England, I could not help but notice that it's just beautiful. Like it's just a beautiful country full of like very nice buildings, nice architecture, and it makes a difference, you know, when you live in the new world. Even here in Australia, where I live right now, I've shown the suburb more or less in other videos, and beautiful houses, but it doesn't have that charm, you know. It doesn't have that living within history kind of thing, you know, that is so commonly found in the UK and also in Europe overall. But yeah, if you're from the UK, or if you moved into the UK, I would love to hear why. Why do you feel like it's still worth staying? Is it because of the reasons I just said? Is it because of something else? Do you see something that I haven't been seeing? And also, if you're on the other side of the boat and you actually left England, either as a working holiday maker in Australia, or as someone who moved for a job to America or to Ireland or to Europe or whatever, what were your reasons to leave? I would love to have a little discussion in the comments down below. And yeah, I'll see you guys around.